On today's episode of the College Lacrosse Show, we chat about the biggest games from last weekend. Notre Dame, Duke getting much-needed victories. Ohio State wins the Big Ten. FAFO, Sicko, and then we do a little stock. Buy, sell, hold. Chat about some teams and whether they're going up, going down. Dan and I, for once, actually have a big disagreement here. So good segment and really good episode. Let's get right into it. Episode 12 of the College Lacrosse Show. Okay, hello, welcome back. Episode 12 of the College Lacrosse Show. After a brief solo episode last week, you're back, man. Welcome back.
I'm back. I'm happy to be here. I am refreshed. I took some time to travel with my kids' spring break. We took a nice long vacation where I put my phone and my watch and everything else that's a screen away for about a week, and it was the most refreshing, wonderful thing in the world. I recommend doing that whenever possible to anybody who can. But I'm back. Been digging through games, catching up on what I missed. A lot of lacrosse things seems to have happened since I was gone. Limestone might not be a school anymore.
Yeah.
But there's that. But it's a time of year that I love. Like, obviously when the conference tournament starts, it's great. But this last week where you're doing like seeding scenarios, who's in, who's out, on top of the RPI bracketology stuff, it's one of the most fun times of the season. So everything now is like, under a microscope. Every last result, whether you're playing in the game or not, is something you need to pay attention to. It's really, really fun.
Yeah, if you're an NLL fan, you've been following the unified standings. They got rid of the conferences. There's just one standings, and we had all of these insane tiebreaker scenarios. That's kind of how it feels going into 2 weeks till we're going to pick this bracket, especially after Notre Dame and Duke both won this weekend. Those teams needed those wins, and the resumes for the teams they beat are probably not as strong as some people might think, and then a potential for the Big Ten tournament to go crazy, as it always does, not even touching the possibility for a bid stealer in the Ivy League. There are some hairy scenarios out there, and good luck to the tournament committee, because this one could be a shit show if it continues like this. Let's jump right into it. 3 big games this past weekend that we're going to talk about. Let's start with Duke versus Cuse. One of the most surprising results of the year for me. I certainly didn't think it was going to be a blowout. I thought Cuse was going to win. I think the 2 games this year that I've had the most surprise at and the most difficult time picking was Notre Dame getting smoked in the Dome and then Cuse getting smoked on the road in this Duke game. But a good effort for the Blue Devils, and I'll let you lead it off.
Yeah, it's funny, as I was going back watching this one, I was thinking about, because you've talked about a bunch on this show, clearing this season, particularly early in the year being something that wasn't great, but teams like across the board, I think the clearing maybe has not been great in college lacrosse. Duke is very much one of those teams. Like on the season, Duke's clearing, I think, around like 81, 82%. Like not horrific, not like a bottom of the barrel team, but if you're Duke or you're a Final Four kind of team, probably a little on the low side. And if I am Syracuse, I'm looking at that number and I'm saying that's a place where maybe we can win. That's a place where I'm going to find an advantage. Duke cleared at 92% in this game. I didn't think Cuse really attacked them with their ride or really tried to come after Duke and try and force the issue with the Duke clear that hasn't always been great. I think Cuse, especially going down early, right? They're down there early 4-0. I'm thinking to myself, that's their path back into this game, right? You get like a big ride back juice goal, like you're fired up and you're fighting your way right back in it. So I think Cuse not necessarily attacking Duke in the clearing game kind of hurt them a little bit. And there's an extension of that where if you don't go after Duke in the clearing game, because their rope unit is so athletic, they're just going to come right at you with
they're going to go right to you.
Like Aiden McGuire's a D-Midi who finished with 2-2 and 3 ground balls. Like, it's tough enough sometimes to deal with the offensive personnel, but if McGuire is eating you up on defense and then just like filling up the net in transition because you can't stop the way Duke clears, then it's easy to kind of figure out how the game kind of went that way for Cuse. For Cuse, look, no goals on 3 shots from Michael Leo is never going to be a winning formula. like no midfield depth goals really. Like McCarthy didn't have anything, Hoddle didn't have anything, nothing from Peyton Anderson. And while those aren't the guys that are going to win you games for Q's at this time of year and in these scenarios, getting nothing from those guys can lose you games for sure. So I think if you're a positive for Q's, is Finn Thompson back in the lineup. I know he didn't do a ton, but just like seeing him out there, I think is good. And then I would also throw in Connecticut bias. Charlie Johnson has been great for Duke down low. I thought he had a really good game in this one. I thought he did okay in the Spallino matchup when he had it. I know if you just go box score, I think Joey had 5 points, but if you turn the tape on, you'll see Charlie Johnson winning that matchup at times. So that was kind of my big takeaway for the game was Duke not being a great clearing team and Syracuse failing to attack that.
Yeah, my big takeaway was really adjacent to that. And again, I always want to be careful when I kind of step into this sort of territory. I thought Syracuse looked tired, to be honest with you. They're not playing enough guys offensively, especially. There's tons of talk, every broadcast, about how Sam English never comes off the field. Okay, sick, but he's logging a shit ton of miles. And then the other thing is coming from someone who played in the Northeast, the first time you get a super hot day is really hard. And it looked really hot down there in Durham. And I thought Cuse just looked a little sluggish. It came in the ride. It came in just the offense wasn't quite popping. And the most important way that it showed up is they were trying to grind on these Duke defenders. They're trying to get into their body and like walk them into spots. And that's not the way to attack this Duke team. All of their D guys are massive mutants back there, including and especially Johnson and McGuire. You have to try to keep their hands off you. And then when Cuse just started ripping the ball around, they weren't even drawing slides all the time, but that's how they got all their goals. And I think they missed those dodge hard down one side, throw it back to Hiltz, and then he just whips it over to the other side. We've talked about that on the show. They didn't have a lot of that. In fact, we didn't really see a ton of Hiltz in this game. I agree what you said about Spallina. A lot of his stuff wasn't coming off his individual matchup, but good answer after a Cornell game when he obviously, I think a lot of people realized he wasn't much of a factor on the score sheet. I was looking at this yesterday. Gary Gate said through the broadcast that they said that Gary had talked about this in their meeting, said that shooting percentage is shooting is basically their barometer. If they shoot well, they win. If they don't shoot well. And shooting's always tough, right? Because there's a million things that go into shooting. You have to get good looks. You have to play good offense. When you win, you usually shoot well, yada, yada. But against Maryland, they shot 17%. So that was 7 goals on 41 shots. That was a loss. And their loss at Harvard, they shot 28%. Again, 30 is kind of the barometer. They're shooting 29.5 on the year. 30 is kind of where you want to be. So 28%. And then in their back-to-back losses, they shot 28% again and then 19% against Duke. So that really does. And then just rip through their wins. 41, 27, 40, 37, 28, 25, 32, 23, 32. So most of their wins are 30 plus. And they had a bunch of good looks in this game that they just didn't cash. Jameson was really good.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. You talk about them not playing a ton of guys. It's the NBA playoffs now, and in the NBA you'd see teams shorten their bench in the playoffs. It's like a common thing that happens. I think you've probably heard. I know Quint has talked about it on the broadcast before, but lacrosse teams sometimes do that too, and it's not the way to win. You need to find ways to be deeper this time of year, not shallower, not leaving just your stars on the field to do all the lifting and, only play on these other guys when everybody's absolutely gassed. If you don't have depth, particularly in your midfield, I think one of my best predictors, or this is just me personally, my way of picking teams I think can really make deep runs is first thing I look at is how deep are you at short stick D-midi? And if you're not, then I don't always trust you to be all that productive down the stretch because it's easy to find matchups where you lose.
Yeah, no, absolutely, totally agree. And that's why Finn Thompson coming back is so important, right? I even if you just start going to a 4-man first line where it's because I think Anderson's been good. I don't think they really want to put another righty back in there. We'll see. But I like for the most part what Anderson's done for them. Probably not his best game against Duke. But but Finn just gives them another option there in the midfield. So they can run 4 of those guys out, or they at least they can try to supercharge a second line and have a little more juice. I actually like their second line middies. Like Hoddle gives them some good juice. McCarthy's pretty good. And they did play in this game. It's not like, it wasn't like last year's Georgetown where they were playing 7 guys, but I just thought they looked a little bit gassed. And also for a team that plays a lot at home, 2 big road trips back to back to Long Island, and then down to Duke. So, maybe that's a factor as well. I think they're back with some home cooking this week in the Dome. Cuse is always going to be a tougher out at the Dome than anywhere else. Okay, switching to the Duke side. The Duke offense was better, but still pretty gross, man. Like they're not a fun watch offensively. I'm just going to say how I feel.
Yeah, I don't think I think pretty gross is the way to say it. Like, I went and looked. We'll get more into this when we get to a different game, but I've been looking at basically the guys taking the majority of shots for teams. And when I went and loaded up like the team stats for Duke, I was like, I honestly probably couldn't tell you who I would pick to be the guy who's taken the most shots on that team this year. Yeah. And when I went and saw, it is not who I expected it to be, even though I didn't know like what I was expecting. But like, I think Max Sloat has taken more shots than anyone on Duke this year. And it's like, it's that alone is like, yeah, it's just kind of a weird Duke offense. Like, this isn't one of those years where, like Gutterding's out there with 1 million points, or, Brennan's been out there for the last half a decade, like doing all sorts of points. And we knew their offense was probably going to be a little bumpy this year, right? The whole attack of Dyson, Brennan, and Sawada, like all being gone, like you knew there was going to be some bumpy road stuff. But I thought by this point in the year, I would have a little clearer picture of what I would expect from the Duke offense in a given week. And I still don't think I have that. Some of that is, and I know we don't always like to like try and pile on individual guys, but before the season, I think a lot of folks in the media in the lacrosse world thought Ben Johnson was going to end up being like a first-team All-American midfielder and a world beater for them. And he's been okay, but he certainly has not been that. So I don't know if there's like, you've got some guys where maybe they thought they'd get more than they're actually ending up getting from them. Their transfers have been good. Molliver, I think, has come into his own and played really well in the game. But, it just feels like, there's no megastar out there, even, and I don't mean to disparage him, but I would even probably include McAdory in that. Like, you know what I mean? McAdory, there's guys that have been on that team in the past where you think like, man, that guy could go out there and play 1-on-6 and probably still get 4 points. I don't think McAdory can do that. So, I still think it's like it's a team offense that's just hasn't been as consistent and is maybe looking for more like key contributors than they can find on their roster right now.
Yeah, totally agree. I had way more behind the net action than they did in their previous game. And then in brackets, good. And then I had, why do they walk so much? In brackets, bad. I don't get it, man. They play 40 seconds of offense every possession because they just walk around for the first 20 seconds. It's like unreal. And I think I'm like maybe sensitive to this because in the PLL, as a midfielder who has to sub on the field, there's so little time. It's like you got to get it and try to do something. Yeah. And then I think one of the things we kind of unlocked at Maryland is like, let's just play 80 seconds of offense. Like as soon as we get the ball, we're playing on offense and we'll just try to roll from kind of one thing into the next. And like there's so much dead time in Duke games where it feels like nothing's happening. And actually I think the same is like sort of true about UNC. It feels like there's like so much quiet time in the game. And if you're not playing that well offensively, like just do a pick down, do something. But they scored 12 on a pretty good defense, and a pretty good goaltender who has seen the ball all right. The action behind the net was important. They were way more behind the net focused. If it's going to be sticky and not moving that well, ball movement wise, it's better to behind the net is a better place to attack from than above. Yeah. And Kershus, the freshman attackman, was a big part of that. He was in the big little, dodging a little bit. I thought he's starting to come into his own. If he can give them some juice back there, that helps. Don't think I had too many more notes on that one. You got anything else?
I don't know how much it ended up mattering, but I know Cal Girard ended up taking the majority of the faceoffs for Duke. And I think that was, Johnny Mullen, I think they were about 50-50 in the game, But not having Ben McCarthy, out there to be a dominant faceoff guy for Duke, I think whenever it happens is going to be meaningful.
Yeah, and also based on our previous conversation, after Mullen, the next closest guy, Mullen's taken 299 faceoffs on Cuse. The next closest guy is Johnny Rachusa, who's taken only 22 faceoffs. And a reminder that Cuse has played some bad teams, so those you can assume, like against Manhattan, those were pretty much all Rachusa. And then B, after you violate, the next guy has to take a faceoff. So in theory, at least the backup faceoff guy should be taking 1 or 2 a game. Just another something to watch. I think that's one spot where having 2 guys certainly helps. But either way, a huge win for Duke. I did a bunch of stuff on the podcast last week about how Duke was kind of on the roster bubble, some similarities to 2022. This probably got them off the bubble, or at least bought them some breathing room. They're going to obviously hope that Cuse does well the rest of the year, because they need that win to really matter. Let's jump to another big game, another team playing their way off the bubble, at least for now, and that's Notre Dame going down to Carolina, and a tale of 2 halves in this one.
Yeah, Carolina goes up. I mean, to me, Carolina goes up 4-0, and then Notre Dame basically just trashes them for the remainder of the game. I thought it was all Notre Dame the rest of the way. But I'm working on something, and I wanted to get this in here. There's something that just kind of piqued my interest, especially after this game. So right now, the JG Wentworth duo, shout out to Anish Shroff for calling this in a game where Owen Duffy assisted a Dave Petramala goal, and he called it 8-7-7 cash now, which, come on, only Anish can do that. But those two have combined to take 213 shots, 103 for Duffy, 110 for Petro. They are the only top 10 team that has 2 players with over 100 shots on it. Those 2 guys have taken 41% of UNC shots this year. I wanted to see if there's anybody else that has a duo doing so much of the shooting quite like those 2. There's nobody else in either the media or the RPI top 10 who is near 40% of two guys taking 40% of their shots. Maryland is at 30% coming from their top 2 shooters on the team. They have 5 players with at least 50 shots on the roster. Even Princeton, the next team you would immediately think of, Makasee and Kabiri, are somewhere between 36-37%. Last year's national champion, the Kavanaugh brothers were the top 2 shooters. They took 30% of their team shots. The year before, Chris Kavanaugh, Eric Dobson, top 2 shooters, 31% of their team shots. Your 22 Maryland Terps, it was Wisnauskas and DeMeo who did the most shooting on that team. They took just under 28% of the team shots. You can just keep going. UVA in 21, Matt Moore, Peyton Cormier, about 33% of the shots. No 2020, but just to make it an even 5 years. 2019 UVA, Matt Moore, and Michael Krause, 35% of the team shots. Again, Duffy and Petro are a little over 41% of the team shots coming from those 2 guys. So when I see them struggle in a game like this, and I see those 2 guys are 1 for 15, I feel like I say the same thing about this team every week. I'm can they get the scoring depth? Can they find other guys who are going to contribute? They had they had 1 player in this game with multiple points. They had nobody with multiple goals. They've been able to find a way to do it against UVA or against Penn or Michigan, even Army for a little bit, to give them a little bit of credit. But if you can't do that, if you can't find it against Notre Dame, it's tough to say you're going to be able to make a meaningful run through the tournament. It's just that time where you need your best from everyone against everyone that's left on the schedule. So to me, it was as I started looking at the way they've shot and how much of the lion's share of the offense is really those 2 guys, it is pretty far out of whack with the rest of the top 10 and where championship level teams have been over the last 5 years in terms of spreading the shooting around. Yeah,
it's kind of unusual watching the game, because when their depth guys score, they're typically some pretty sick goals. The Wilson kid had the ankle breaker behind the net. That's for a team that's struggling with some secondary scoring. Their depth guys can make some really sick plays sometimes. I think they're maybe a little they got a lot of Dodgers in there, and there's they almost need a Devin McClain type. But then I guess they're not drawing a ton of slides either, so maybe that's maybe that's tough, and guys like Wertheim can fill that role. They still feel like they're looking for answers a little bit offensively. And the other thing, it's particularly noticeable against Notre Dame because, in my opinion, like Ben Ramsey was arguably the best player on the field. And we know Light is awesome. Schwitzenberg is becoming a star, I think, in front of our eyes. Donovan is a stud, and Ramsey's a stud. So I think the path to go through those four guys is going to be tough. I think Notre Dame games are going to depend on, can you get after the other D-midi and the other pole, and then when the second line D-midis are there, can you get after them? And they got Buckner got beat a couple times. You can beat those guys, and that's why a team like Cuse had success on Notre Dame because they spread them out. They went after they're winning with Cuse's sixth guy was winning against Notre Dame's sixth guy. But when Notre Dame has to go best on best, or when UNC tries to go best on best with them, it's a long day. And I respect Duffy for going at Light. He went at him more than anyone has gone at him this year. But the kid is pretty much as good as advertised.
Yeah. I think, on the Notre Dame side of the ball, I think you kind of nailed where I was going there is like they were able to be successful because the spots where you attack them is that second short stick D-midi, is like their midfield defensive depth isn't what it's been. It's where they're vulnerable. And Carolina is not at all built or run as an offense that will do that. They want to play best on best. They want to say, these are our two guys, and they're going to get us where we want to go. And look, Duffy to me is, I think at midseason I voted him a first-team All-American. Like he's been an electric player, and as I say, like we need to spread the ball around. Like I want to be careful to be like I don't want to take the ball at a number 8 stick for Carolina. Like he's one of the most electric players in the country, but. Is there opportunities for Ty English to do a little bit more? I think so. I think he's a really good player who could probably stand to have a few more touches and a little more production. So there's that. And then I think, as good as Carolina was in the portal with getting Gianfrancaro and some of the help that they got, Wertheim, again, he's like 19 points, like, okay, but Dupuis hasn't really given them anything. So like sometimes your reinforcements, you're not going to hit on every guy you get. Sometimes those portal guys aren't going to give you maybe the production you hope for. And I think that's, there's a little bit of that too.
Yeah, I think the hope for guys like Dupuis especially is like he's a grown man. He's been through college. Can he make some plays in the playoffs? And that's kind of where we're getting to because he's been more of a factor recently than he was early in the season. The other thing that really exacerbated these issues for Carolina, just bad stick work. They just threw a bunch of balls away and didn't shoot very well. And you're just not going to beat good teams doing like that. There's actually a lot of that this weekend. Hopkins did it a bunch. And
I was going to say Notre Dame did plenty of that in that first half, man. Like just like dummy dodge, roll away from my defender, and like transfer pass that's just 5 yards over a guy's head. It was like there was some of that out there, and yeah, agree. Like just some sloppy play from teams that should not be sloppy right now.
And look, they haven't been perfect all year, but Cornell, Maryland, and Princeton, you don't see those a lot from them, especially offensively. The stick work has just been better, and Carolina left a few goals out there, which is just tough against Notre Dame because their defense is obviously very good, and then Richard Daly is a stud in the goal. So you got to, when you get your looks, you got to cash them. Notre Dame, the story of the game for me, offensively, they obviously go on this big tear, is unassisted goals. 12 goals, only 4 of them assisted. Normally, that's not great. It's not exactly how you want to play offense, but in the playoffs, as things start to get muddy, and that's starting to happen now, that's important. And that showed when the chips are down that Notre Dame has some bucket getters who could go get you some. And probably one of the better Chris Kavanaugh games we've seen as well. That toe drag move he made was filthy. So that midfield really started to kind of flex a little bit as the game went on, I thought.
Yeah, I think they feed off of Chris Kavanaugh, and I think you really see that. When he scores that kind of goal and has like his celebrations, it looks like every goal he scores, it looks like it's the last one he thinks he's ever going to get. So like, I think honestly, I think that does a lot for that offense. I think they feed off of that, but Connecticut bias. Matt Jeffrey is going to be a superstar. Like he's the kid. Sick. The kid is ready to dodge against anybody. That goal he
scored from the midfield, where he just like Clark had it pretty good with the stop and go move. That was filthy. He gets shot out of a cannon for real.
You get two guys with him and Faison who are D1 wide receivers getting off the line against every single person that lines up across from them. So
yeah,
I think that is a key, is those two guys in the midfield, being dynamic, and they can be dodge to score players. So if those guys see their usage in that role increased, where we want you to just dodge and shoot, the unassisted goals thing, to me, maybe you see more of that because they're just getting more of these plays where their midfield just blows by somebody and rips one because they have enough guys that can do that. So it's something that's definitely interesting. And Kavanaugh, of course, is going to be an unassisted goal machine if he wants to be. But I thought Jalen Seymour had a good game too. I think he had a pair of goals, but it's another guy where in the midfield he can beat somebody off the dodge. So I think you're looking at guys who are electric coming downhill. Who I know Jeffrey as a wing dodger can be great, to sweeping up to his left hand. So, there's enough there that the unassisted goals thing doesn't necessarily worry me because they have personnel who are going to just go get those. Like, it's who they are.
Yeah, no, it doesn't worry me at all. I think it's very, very hard to win in the playoffs if you can't get unassisted goals. So I think that is a good sign. And they got Buzenkill back too. So that gives them really 7 deep in the midfield because they felt like they had a pretty good 6 with Fisher Finley and when Buzenkill was out, they felt like they had 6 pretty good ones. So now I think they feel pretty good about it. And the team hasn't played a lot of games and plays a lot of players. So fresh legs wise, something to monitor there with Notre Dame. Okay, you good on that one? Anything else?
Yeah, I'm good there.
I think I'm good too. I wrote Jeffrey ... wow on that goal. Try to keep it simple here.
Keep it simple.
My handwritten notes. Okay, let's jump to Ohio State, Michigan. Ohio State wins their first regular season Big Ten Conference Championship. One of the best rivalries in college sports. And congrats to the Buckeyes, 10-8 victory.
Yeah, I think whenever you're talking about this game, the story, it kind of starts in the fourth quarter. Michigan's up 8-5 with 5.5 or so minutes to go, and then they lose the game. They give up a 5-goal run in that last 5 minutes. I'm going to speak to the Ohio State side, I think, because I have more Michigan notes, I think, for later. But Gannon Matthews was a man possessed in that last 5 minutes. 3 goals, all in the closing run of that game, all unassisted. Including the one that iced it with a little under a minute to go. Ohio State only had 3 assisted goals in this game. Speaking of the assisted goals thing, so I think on the season a little more than or probably a good amount more as I look up the stats. Yeah, 55 or so % of their goals this year have been assisted. So to see them play a style of game where you have that many unassisted goals is going to be a little bit different. Sometimes it's not necessarily something that Ohio State did. It might be more something that Michigan did. Michigan's out there holding matchups or trying not to slide or trying not to switch. Then it just creates more space for guys to dodge and score. And that's just a case of Ohio State taking what they're given rather than being we need to score unassisted goals proactively. So I think, Ohio State's built to play that game. We're not going to slide as much. We're going to try to hold matchups kind of game. But really, I think Ohio State just played this game to their formula, particularly late. The defense cracked down when they needed it to crack down. They had a tough first quarter. They bounced back. They give up, I think, 2 shots in the second quarter or something like that to Michigan. They allowed just 2 shots, I should say. They allowed 2 shots in that final 5-minute stretch where they won the game. Both of those were FIOC saves. And one of those shots was the desperation, 15 seconds left kind of, low quality shot at the goal. So I thought the defense was nasty and kind of took this game from Michigan down the stretch. They just locked them out.
Yeah, Viac has 12 saves. You pretty much have no chance on Ohio State. You're not going to demolish them at the faceoff X, and you're not going to get enough good looks to do it. The only way is you got to shoot super efficiently, as Maryland did, and Michigan wasn't able to do that. And it does seem like anything in the upper half of the goal is just going to go Fioc's way. He's just got the quickest hands in the country, and Boy, I don't I don't have I don't envy you having to choose this first team All-American goalie because
I don't know who it is.
he's close. If he's not the one, he's damn close. And I keep saying this every week. We could just keep rinsing and repeating what we're saying about Ohio State. It's the same. It is their formula, and it's worked very well. And it seems pretty well set up for playoff success, at least in the early going here. And they earned themselves a big bye week. For those that don't know, there's the top two seeds in the Big Ten tournament get a bye week, and the other four will play this weekend. So to get healthy and get rested and scout for a week is hugely important. I remember at Maryland having that weekend off is just like a godsend to just chill for a weekend before, for all the teams involved in the Big Ten, hopefully a big, long playoff run ahead. I don't have, honestly, too many more notes. I split kind of the time prepping between that game and then Maryland-Hopkins. Pretty good effort for Hopkins. Jelena was good in the cage. Kind of a story of the year there for Hopkins, but just not able to win enough matchups. And Maryland just continues to scheme up good looks offensively. And, boy, kind of a bad to worse year here for Hopkins, and it just has not broken their way here in the second half of the season.
Yeah, it's been bad. I think Maryland kind of choked them out of this game in the fourth quarter. I think Hopkins gets some credit for hanging in there. Not an easy win for the Terps, I don't think, in that game. I think Hopkins deserves some credit because, and I know we don't like to do this, but I'll wear it myself if I have to. I think I've questioned their effort or their preparedness in some of these games the last couple of weeks where they just look like they just haven't had the fight that maybe they had early in the year. I know they're banged up and dealing with a lot, but I thought they played much better in this game. A Maryland Hop game is never going to be like an easy one for somebody. One team could be 10-0 against an 0-10 team, and it's still probably going to be a pretty close game, and it's going to be a battle because it's just that kind of rivalry. I thought there was something going on with the ground ball stats in this game. I don't know if you saw it. Hold on. Let me pull it back up because I can't it was like there's something weird happening here. I don't know. I mean, I guess I would believe it knowing the kind of team that Maryland is. So if you look at stats, all right, face-offs go Hopkins' way 14-9. Ground balls go Maryland's way 27-16. If you give Hopkins a ground ball for every face-off they won, are you telling me Hopkins picked up 2 ground balls the rest of the game? And watching it or trying to speed through it, I'm like, that doesn't seem right at all.
Some of them could have been violations.
Yeah, I mean, if you make half of them violations, that still give Hopkins 7 or 8 ground balls in the game. There's no way, right? I don't know, but I got to go back and watch the game again. Maybe just count them up myself or something.
Bottom of it. Big scandal here in college lacrosse. Play some detective music over this.
But look, I think Hopkins got a face-off. They had the face-off edge. I thought Callahan was good. They went to man up twice and didn't score either time. If you're going to beat Maryland, you can't waste those opportunities. But otherwise, they really didn't play that bad a game. They didn't turn it over a ton. It wasn't super clean, but didn't turn it over a ton. As you said, they got 20 saves out of their goalie. They didn't shoot great, but they didn't shoot that much, or I guess horribly.
Yeah, no,
Maryland shot Maryland shot way better. Maryland took 37 shots, put 31 of them on cage. It's just
crazy.
Laser guided missiles out there. So, but I don't think, again, from an effort point, I don't think Hopkins can say we didn't give this one our best. Maryland's just a better team than they are.
Yep. 0 for 5 for Hopkins in the Big Ten play here to end the season. And, the reality is the offense has just been tough. In those 5 losses, 8 goals, 10 goals, 4 goals, 8 goals. Not going to get it done. The wrinkle through a Collison at attack was good. I don't know what other options they really have at this point. He's your best player. Might as well have him out there more often. I think that's a good idea going into the Big Ten tournament. I haven't watched a ton of Hopkins recently. I think that's the first time we've seen that. So a good wrinkle there from the staff. But, yeah, they're just not winning enough matchups. There's too many possessions where there's basically no slide. And the goals they were scoring were mostly either mistakes against Maryland or just really good catches in traffic and finishes by Hopkins there. But the Big Ten tournament's unpredictable. You can play your way back in to the tournament. Obviously, the AQ's sitting out there. They will obviously have a long road starting with Penn State, then to Ohio State, then to the winner of what is likely going to be Michigan or Maryland. So a long road ahead for Hopkins. Okay, let's jump into Fafo and Sicko. F around and find out. Why don't you lead us off here?
So I have two for the Fafos. My first one, I'm going to give one here to UMass. They started the year 7-1. They beat in their 7-1 stretch there. They beat Dartmouth. They beat Albany. They beat Vermont. They beat Rutgers. They have lost 3 of their last 5 games, including against High Point and Richmond. And they play Hobart this weekend. If they lose, they go to 2-3 in conference, tied with Hobart, who has then the head-to-head win. And then I think they need some tiebreaker help at that point, to try and keep their season alive. So UMass is one kind of serious Fafo watch on possibly squandering a great start to their season. To start 7-1 and then maybe need tiebreaker help to make your conference tournament would be surprising. I think Coach Cannell is one of my favorites. I think he's really, really good. We knew before the season, we said that was one of those teams where they really lost a ton to graduation and had a ton of new faces and new primary players and everything. But it's a big ask for them to find out this weekend, right? This is this is uncharted territory for a lot of these guys who've never played in this high stakes of a game. So even if it is Hobart, this is a big one for them.
Okay, mine, and I'm going to take credit, Dan. We brought this team back from the dead. My Fafo are the Loyola Greyhounds, winners of 3 out of 4 games.
Yes.
A dominant win over Navy, 16-11 against a pretty good Navy team that just went wire to wire with Army. They're 3 out of 4, with that one loss being the heartbreaker to Towson. The Greyhounds back from the dead. Credit, all kidding aside, credit to those kids for staying in the fight, and credit to that coaching staff for keeping everyone engaged. But who wants to see the Greyhounds now, man? One of the hottest teams in America going up against one of the best teams in America this weekend. But yeah, fuck around, find out. Loyola Greyhounds.
That's a good one for sure. Shout out to Coach Toomey and that staff, man. They did that's a hell of a job to get them where they are. They can make the Patriot League tournament. Anything can happen.
Anything can happen.
My second one is goal records are finding out.
Yeah.
I don't want this to just be the CJ Kerr show, but honestly, because God knows the kid already gets a ton of pub. The focus of the talk around him has been the career goals record, which of course he tied. He's got the 224. In all likelihood, that falls this weekend. He's at 59 on the year, which puts the very bonkers 82 goals in a season mark in striking distance. For my money, I consider that the more impressive record than the career goals thing at this point. But that is not all. There's other records we could start talking when it comes to goal production from CJ Kerr. Peyton Cormier, 3.1 goals per game. Mac O'Keefe, 3.3. The legend Stan Cockerton owns the goals per game record at 4.39 from his NC State days. Cornell legend Mike French is a hair over 4 at 4.06. Those are the only 2 guys to break the 4 goals per game mark. It's going to take a lot, but I'm going to say it's possible. CJ Kerr is currently at 3.73 goals per game. He has a maximum possible number of games left of 7. They have Dartmouth this weekend, 2 Ivy games, opening round, quarters, Final Four, title game. If CJ Kerr scores 44 goals in those 7 games, he will finish the season, number 1, with 103 goals, which would be absolutely insane. But also he would finish with exactly 4 goals per game this season. He'd have to average about 6 goals a game for it to work out, but hey, or I guess for his career, I should say. He'd average 4 goals a game for his career. He has to average 6 goals a game over that 7 games to get there, basically. But he's averaging 4.9 goals per game right now. And by the way, if that holds, it will be a record for goals per game in a single season.
Yeah, it's just crazy. I wrote a big article about it today. You should go read it. Made some cool data visualizations that you should go read. One of the most astounding stats. He has been held to 0 goals 3 times in 60 games and 1 goal 4 times. He has scored 6 goals 8 times, and he scored 7 4 times, and then he had the 9-goaler against Yale. So he has easily had more sock tricks than he has had games without a goal. And even if you apply the 1 goal, 0 or 1, that's 7 times. He still has more sock tricks, and that's not even including the 7-goal and the 9-goal game. It's just insane. It's insane. And there's only so many ways to keep saying it. I just booked my accommodations for the Ivy League tournament. I will be there, and I can't freaking wait.
Yeah, the fact that he might finish this season owning 3 different goal records, career goals, season goals, and season goals per game is like it's one of the best seasons anyone's ever seen.
It is. And as a Cornell fan, it's been fun to watch. I am significantly worried about being a jinx. So I want to watch what I say, but I am really loving watching him play. He's just a stud, and this Cornell offense is clearly the best unit right now. And they're going to see some good defenses here at Dartmouth. And then the Ivy tournament has not been kind to Cornell in recent years, really since my freshman year. We had that upset against Yale. It's been tough sledding for us ever since. So a lot of challenges ahead, but you can only play the next game and a big win over Cuse, and then a really good opportunity to have a letdown game after the Cuse win in front of a ton of fans on Long Island. And Harvard's very good. Harvard got back into that game. We've seen Cornell the last couple of years drop some of those, and they just emphatically stomped it down. And you want to talk about a team with 2 midfield lines that are rolling pretty good. Big Red kind of lead that list. Okay, let's jump into Sicko. I'll lead us off here. This is a good one. Lemoyne versus Robert Morris. An NEC title on the line. I don't know if Lemoyne is eligible or if there's some of that nonsense that sometimes goes on, but the winner of this game will be the first place team in the NEC. Lemoyne is currently 5-1. Robert Morris is 6-0. So a win would bring them into a tie, and the tie would obviously go to Lemoyne in that case, which would be a great outcome for the Dolphins in their introduction to Division I.
Yeah, that was. I have a couple, all sort of in that same theme, but yeah, Lemoyne and Bobby Moe was one of mine, because that story would be awesome. I don't know if there's also like the NCAA shenanigans about like how soon you're allowed to win a title because. By the way,
that's the dumbest thing of all time. It's the dumbest thing.
It's you're new here, so you can't have a ring. Like just the dumbest shit in the world.
And Zach Greer has the goal title. He scored. He's still like 3rd in career goals, just counting the Duke ones. It's crazy.
But Lemoyne winning that game and winning the NEC in their second year in D1, their first year in a conference, like would be just one of the cooler stories. The other 2 games, they're basically, my favorite, the Sicko games for the same reason, but UMass and Hobart, where I already kind of talked about, but UMass is kind of playing for their survival at this point. And then Providence and St. John's. Providence win gets them to 2-3 in conference. Providence wins and Marquette beats Denver. The Pios, I think, missed the Big East tournament. Like, that's on the table.
Crazy.
Which feels insane. It just feels insane. So the Big East has been a good Sicko conference this year, in that like all those teams are pretty medium, and they can all win it, and they can all beat each other in just horrible, ugly, like 7-3 Denver Georgetown fashion. So Providence and St. John's, my other Sicko.
By the way, people, I was going to say something about Flow Live Sports as it relates to the Big East. I touched on the fact that I didn't think the broadcast was great for Corrigan Sports, Cuse versus Cornell. I got a ton of comments saying I was way too kind for them. So people feel strong AF about that one. And you're right. I'm a little bit grumpy about all the complaining about broadcast, even though that one was pretty crappy. On that note, I think this whole Maryland's camera is so high in the sky thing has been super overrated, especially when it's actually on the Big Ten network, not Big Ten Plus, and the camera quality is good. Come on. It's not that
I
big
don't
a
like
deal.
it when it's way up there too, but it has become like a meme in itself for like, if it's a Maryland home game, it's going to be out there on social. Somebody is going to say the camera's on the moon, or like do that whole bit.
Yeah.
They could put it at field level and people would say that. So like, it's become that. But
Yeah, also, I forgot to put
will.
in my number one note of the Maryland Hopkins game was I miss college. That's what I put. 10,000 people in Maryland Stadium.
I
Got
know.
to play in that rivalry. It was sick. We played the regular season game at Homewood. It was awesome. Highlight of my career. And, I miss college. Yep.
I will never complain about a paid stream that's worth paying for. But if I pay for your stream and I turn it on and it stinks, I'm going to tell you it stinks and that it wasn't worth the money I paid.
Yeah, the broadcast was a little, I don't know, casual, put it that way. A little pro-Cuse too, I think, especially at the end of the game, flaming Cornell for scoring on an empty net when Cuse was clearly trying to take a pound of flesh.
I know.
So that, whatever, is what it is. Okay, so we're going to end with a different segment. Instead of previewing specific games, we're going to do a little stock market segment here. So buy, sell, hold. Dan and I are analysts. Hopefully this goes better than the actual stock market right now. If you've been reading the news, can't go worse. So let's start positive. It's a good way to live your life. Let's start with, who are you buying right now? Who are you recommending folks to buy stock in right now?
So I have two teams that I'm buying right now. One is Notre Dame, who we've already talked a good amount here on the show, but I would just say, like, on top of all the other notes we made about their depth and how good they've become and how they're coming into their own on offense, we said, like, they have a weakness you can attack in that, their defensive midfield depth maybe isn't what it has been. That's the place where you get at them. But as you look around the country, there probably aren't many teams that are built to actually effectively attack that all that well. There's not that many teams who run deep enough on offense, with quality Dodgers and players that can really punish Notre Dame for that. So I think as you look at Notre Dame's recent form, particularly the way they just played against Carolina for the second half of that game, they're clearly, I think, moving in the right direction. Their midfield's looking better. It's a good team to get behind right now. And then my other buy is the Towson Tigers. I got Towson. The current longest winning streak in the country is 7 games. The two teams that are at that are Cornell and Towson. In that stretch, Mikey Weishar is averaging over 5 points a game. He has shot 30% or under 30% once, I think, in the last 7 games. He put at least 5 shots on goal 5 times in those 7 games. And to me right now, I think he's playing like the best midfielder in America. I think he gets extra credit, honestly, because when you're doing the scout against Towson, it starts with Mikey Weishar. And, like, I don't mean to disrespect the rest of the guys in the Tigers offense, but it basically ends with Mikey Weishar too. Yeah. You go out there looking to stop number 1. Ronan Fitzpatrick, a freshman, has hit 30 goals on the season. That's awesome. And he's, like, having a nice breakout year as a young player. I think Chop Gallagher is a solid player. But when the Tigers show up to your building, your whole defense is looking at number 1. And for Weishar to still be as productive as he's been over this stretch, I think is pretty exceptional. They have locked up hosting the CAA tournament, regardless of their result against Hofstra this weekend. They absolutely took it to Fairfield last week. They started the year, I think, 1-5 and are now 8-5. So outside of someone like Cornell, I think you can call Towson maybe the hottest team in America. So they're definitely getting a buy order from me.
Yeah, good call by you. We were on that pretty early, I think, Towson, a few weeks ago, saying, hey, they got a chance to kind of get going here. And a lot of their losses were to good programs, too. It's a team that is able to schedule really good teams. Obviously, it makes sense given that they went to a Final Four and the respect that everyone in the lacrosse world rightfully has for that coaching staff. But they get good teams on the schedule, lost a few of those early. Weishauer's been a stud in a relatively weak midfield pool this year too. There's going to be like some insanely hard decisions for all Americans at goaltender. For like offensive midfielder, it's going to be a little bit harder, especially when guys like McAdory and Collison and some of the Notre Dame guys, they get so much attention and it's just hard to produce as a midfielder. It's easier to scheme a midi out of the game, in my opinion, than it is an attackman, because there's so much stuff you can do with trying to shut them out of the box, or just make life difficult, or send super early slides to high dodges. Harder, for example, to slide super early to an X attackman, but totally agree there. Okay, I got 2 buys. Michigan's one, coming off the loss. They have really excelled in the Big Ten tournament in recent years. I think they're back-to-back champions, if I'm not mistaken. And where is the Big Ten tournament this year? It is in Ann Arbor. They have a tough one. They got to get through Hopkins first, and it's Big Ten play. You always got to worry about that. But then they get home cooking. They're used to playing in the tournament. They beat Maryland, and then they were basically about to beat Ohio State, who I think all agree Maryland and Ohio State, 2 of the top 5 teams in the country. And then, so now to win the Big Ten, they got to get by Hopkins, and then they're likely have to beat Maryland, and then beat Ohio State, 2 teams that we've already seen them beat, and we know that they're really good enough to beat. So do I think Michigan is going to win the Big Ten? No, but if you're buying and selling stocks on the margins, or maybe looking for a team that might surprise, I think that's one. And then this is going to probably surprise folks based on the conversation we had. I'm buying Cuse. I think they're good. I think these last 2 games have been a little bit of an anomaly. I think getting Finn Thompson helps a ton. They're going to get back in the Dome this week. I think they're better than – they play Carolina this week. I think they're better than Carolina, and – this offense is good. They're skilled. To your point about Duffy and Petromala taking a bunch of shots, they have 4 guys within like 79 and like 83 shots or something like that. That's Hiltz, Leo, Spallina, and Roa. They're pretty deep. They hopefully can get some rest and get some of the second line guys going. Finn will have a big impact on that, and I think they're pretty good. They were in that Cornell game with the best team in the country, and really it was just Wyatt Nuss and the shooting that would kind of undid them. They got to fix some stuff on defense. They got to stop fouling, etc. Why don't we go to the sell here? Who are you selling?
Well, I'm selling 2 teams that you're buying. I'll start with those. I'm selling Michigan. Okay. I'm selling Michigan, and I'm selling Q's. I'm out. I'm sorry, Orange fans. I am out on you right now. Back-to-back losses for them. Like it's Cornell and Duke, so it's not like they're losing to bad teams. 3 of their losses are outside the Dome. I'm selling them a lot based on the fact that they on their road record here. 5 opponents outside the Dome this year: Maryland, Utah, UVA, Cornell, and Duke. The 2 teams they won against are Utah and a close one against UVA. Maryland, Cornell, Duke, again, really good. But really good is going to be all that's left on the schedule now. So contenders are what you're going to see every week. And if you can't beat the heavyweights outside of the Dome, then you can't win a national championship. Maybe can't even make it to the Final Four. So Q's is in the Dome this weekend. Like you said, they get UNC in the Dome. They're probably, I don't know if they're going to be favored. Who knows? But I wouldn't be surprised if they won because they're at home. But then it's time for the ACC tournament. They might even be the 1 seed. But the ACC tournament ain't in the Dome. And the rest of the games this year won't be in the Dome. There's no more room for error in the road games. And I have not learned, or I have not seen enough, I guess, to trust the Orange when they're playing outside of the Dome right now. So I'm selling Q's. I'm selling Michigan, basically because I can't think of a worse possible way to enter the conference tournament than what they did against Ohio State. Like you choked a game away against your biggest rival at home. You choked away a 3-goal lead with 5 minutes to go. Hunter Taylor didn't make one save over that last 5-minute stretch. Michigan basically couldn't manage much in the way of a shot in that final stretch. Like the mojo for them right now for me is just off, losing the way they did against Ohio State. So I'm out on them. My other teams or my other places where I'm selling is I've talked to UMass a little bit, but I'm selling on St. Joe's. They lost to High Point last week. I think that was a bad one. High Point's been better, but that's not a good time to have that loss. The silver lining is that St. Joe's hosts the A-10 tournament, regardless of where they get seeded in it, because they won it last year. So they play Richmond this weekend. I'm going to assume High Point beats the Bonnies and finishes 4-1 in conference. So Richmond and UMass win. St. Joe's becomes the 4th seed, and then they have to play back-to-back games against Richmond. if St. Joe's wins, they're a 3 seed, I think, and then they got to go through High Point again, and then probably deal with Richmond in the final. Like Richmond's a team that's won 5 in a row. They beat the heck out of Hobart, out of High
Richmond's
Point,
good.
out of UMass.
Richmond is good.
Like the Spiders, I think, have taken the lessons of playing that bitch of a schedule early in the year, and they have said, now we are adequately, leathered up and steeled to play conference play and beat the heck out of teams, which is what they're doing. So I think whatever path St. Joe's possibly has forward from here goes through probably like multiple dates with Richmond. And for that reason, it's tough to stand up against Richmond right now. So I'm selling on St. Joe's, and I'm selling on the entire Big East. There are 5 teams that can win that conference: Georgetown, Villanova, Denver, Providence, and even Marquette, honestly. Only 4 of them are going to make the actual Big East tournament.
And so none of them are very good at lacrosse.
None of them are very good. We kind of talked the Providence scenario already. Like, the best RPI in the Big East right now is Georgetown at 25. Denver's at 26, Nova's at 30, Providence is at 40, Marquette's at 41. Like, it's elimination games for everybody all the time. None of them look like somebody I'd pick to win an NCAA tournament game. It is as wide open as a year as it is in the Big East. It is also that down of a year in the Big East to me. So I'm selling the entire Big East.
Yeah. Okay.
A lot of selling there for me.
I'll go into my no. That's okay. I'll go into my sell here. I'm gonna sell. I'm gonna sell. Try to sell a little bit high after a big win. I'm selling Duke. I don't see the vision offensively for how they're going to score against good teams and teams that are better suited to attack them. I think Cuse is going to look back on the film and just realize they left a lot of goals out there. When Cuse started ripping it around, they had a lot of success. The defense is good. If you can stop transition and you can get good looks on Duke, they're going to be in trouble. And some of these really elite defenses that they're going to see coming up, like Duke, Notre Dame, it just doesn't feel like Duke's didn't get any good looks. And that game was a blowout a few weeks ago in Ann Arbor. I think a lot of folks are probably skeptical about Duke. So you're saying, well, who's going to buy this sell? I'm going to say I'm not taking the bait here after this big win. And then my other one is Penn State. I'm just not really sure what to make of this team. And it scares me a little bit that I don't know exactly which direction they're going in a big game when they need a goal. And they still don't have a ton of behind the net presence. That scares me too. And I haven't watched a ton of them. And admittedly, when I did watch a lot of Penn State games, it was some of their struggles this year. And they really kind of rallied here late in the year with some big wins. But I just don't know what to make of them. And I don't know if they're as good as the teams, directly above them.
Yeah, I'm with you on Penn State. I didn't know I was going to make them like a sell, maybe a hold. I didn't know, like, I have no feel for them right now. There's something, there's a weird vibe around Penn State, right? I can't put my finger on it. Like, I trust them to beat good teams, but I also there's just something about them where I just don't trust them to beat anybody comfortably, I guess.
Yeah, totally agree. Okay, I'll go through my holds real quick. Carolina, I think Carolina's pretty good. I think Duffy's incredible. So against teams that don't have like a super, super elite cover guy like Light, I think they're still going to be fine. And yeah, I just think Carolina's pretty good, so I'm not overreacting there. And then I guess it's not even really worth putting in, but Ohio State, I think, is exactly as good as we say they are. They have some limitations to getting to the top, sure. But that defense is so stout. Their floor seems super high. So I'm just holding on to Ohio State. I feel like we know exactly who they are, and it's going to be a tough team to beat in the playoffs. Ohio State feels like someone that's going to lose in the Final Four on Saturday type vibe to me. They're going to eventually run into someone who can score more than them. But fuck, they got a long runway ahead of them.
So my holds are teams where I was thinking like don't bail yet. Like just stick with me on this. So my holds, one of mine is Army. I'm holding on Army. It's kind of deja vu all over again for me. Like they're gonna spend the entire year probably in or around the media top 5, and then they probably need to get the AQ or they won't make the tournament. Like their RPI is 11, which is decent. Their strength of schedule is 27, which might not be like disqualifying on its own, but it's close. It's close to the way the bubble is shaping up for people just look at like strength of schedule 27. We're all right. You're out. They're super talented. We all know that. I very happily pat myself on the back for saying early in the season that Jackson Eicher is a game-changing player. I think he could be a Tewaaraton finalist, the way it's going right now. Their freshman class has been outstanding. Evan Plunkett and AJ Pilot are All-Americans. They've not had Will Coletti for stretches and still found ways to win, including against Carolina. But like there's no margin for error for them. So like they host Loyola this weekend. BU plays Colgate. If Army fucks around this weekend and drops the game and BU beats Colgate, then Army is going to find out, because then they will not host the Patriot League tournament. Army loss, BU win means BU hosts the tournament. The comfort and the rest and the routine of hosting your conference tournament, particularly for guys up at West Point and in a conference like the Patriot League where everybody just destroys each other, is massive. So I'm holding Army, because if they get through this, if they make it to the NCAA tournament, they're good enough to play with everybody. But there is zero margin for error on them getting there. And then my other hold is the Virginia Cavaliers. I'm not done.
Whoa.
I'm not done with UVA yet.
Whoa!
It's been not a great year, particularly by UVA standards, but they are not dead. Mathematically, they are not dead. I refuse to say that the Virginia Cavaliers and Lars Tiffany are done until the fat lady sings. They're playing elimination games. They are at home against Duke this weekend in elimination mode. If they beat Duke at home, like in a survive and advance game, they make the ACC tournament. Q's and Carolina result will let us know who the 1 seed is there, but like UVA, they play Q's if it's them. I think they play Notre Dame if UNC wins. But if UVA beats Duke and they make the ACC tournament, then they got to win 2 games against 2 ACC teams. Their RPI today is 14. Their strength of schedule is 6. Does a run of results of beat Duke to make ACC tournament and then win ACC tournament suddenly make them scary? Does it put them in the NCAA tournament? It might. Is it possible? North Carolina literally did this and won a national championship. It is not something we have never seen before. I'm not saying it's likely. Not even saying like I think it's going to happen, but I'm not selling it. I'm waiting to see with Virginia.
Okay, I'll keep my response very simple. I'm out. I'm out on Virginia. I'm out. I can't do it. I can't do it. They might be Duke because I'm out on
winning 3 straight ACC games and making the NCAA tournament.
I understand what you're saying. I'm not trying to misrepresent. You're not saying it's going to happen. You're saying that they still have a chance, and
it's possible.
I get we're on the same page. But just so our viewers are clear, I'm out. Now they might be Duke.
So can Virginia.
They might be Duke. I'm out on Duke too. I don't enjoy watching them play. They walk around all the time. I don't like watching those teams play. Yeah. Okay. Perfect. That was a great segment. Actually, we don't really see eye to eye on this stuff, which is great. Okay. I'm buying Cornell and Maryland, my 2 favorite teams.
I don't know if there's anybody else left I would consider as
because I have
buy
2
sell hold
degrees on my
team.
wall. That's why I have 2 degrees on my wall, and I would like the prestige of those to go up if possible. Yeah.
Anybody out there who's buying Richmond, I'm with you. I would maybe put, if you want a spicy take too, I don't know. I got Princeton as either a sell or a hold because I still don't trust them facing off. I don't always trust them clearing the ball. And then the little places where you win and lose NCAA tournament games. So Princeton is, I don't know if they're a sell or a hold, but I don't think Princeton is a buy for me right now.
Yeah, they're kind of skating through Princeton, like the national consciousness. I don't think people realize like they're not scoring a ton, and we haven't seen them play like a whole ton of. Their strength of schedule is very good. I'm just trying to pull up their schedule here, but we haven't seen them beat a ton of good teams.
To beat Penn last weekend. They had to battle back from 3 goals down to beat Penn last weekend.
So their best wins are at Penn State on opening day by 1. It's a good win, and then the weekend when they beat Duke and North Carolina. That was impressive. But since then, Rutgers, not a great year for Rutgers. They lost to Cornell. Harvard, that was a good win. Dartmouth, pretty good win. Lehigh, Vermont, Brown, Penn. Since then, haven't really seen a ton. And then Yale this weekend is not really going to show us a whole lot. That's going to change anyone's opinion. So I agree. Yeah. I think we'll know a lot more about Princeton after, obviously, the Ivy League tournament. And I haven't looked necessarily at the standings for the Ivy League. I think there's a lot that can still shake out this weekend. But it seems like, Cornell and Princeton and Harvard, I guess, have been the kind of the 3 best teams.
Yeah, the Ivy tournament's set. The host is set, but where teams kind of get seeded, I think the other 3 teams get seeded is up in the air. The only other thing I would sell is I'm going to sell whatever media voter put Hopkins in the top 20. Identify yourself. Like, tell me why this team that's lost 5 straight games and does not look good is better than is one of the 20 best teams in America. Like, no, they're not. They're definitely not. Yep. What are you doing? Tell me who you are and why you voted this way.
Agreed. Okay, you got anything? This just feels at this point like an area of grievances. Anything else you want to get off the chest?
Anything else I want to sell?
Yeah. I got a bicycle. If any viewers are looking for a bicycle with a broken pedal, I got a bicycle that I need to sell. So.
Yeah. I'm selling people who reply to RPI rankings and ask why teams move the way they did. Yes. I'm selling those people. They move that way because the computer moved them that way. This isn't a human doing this.
I'm selling people that say we have to find a better we have to find a better system than RPI without suggesting a better system.
Yes. Yes, you're only allowed to say this is a problem if while doing it you present a solution to the problem you're identifying.
Correct. And it can't be the eye test because the people on the committee don't watch lacrosse. And that's an issue.
If that's what it is, then it's just Kip Turner in a room by himself picking the field.
Yeah. They should let us pick the field. That's what they should do.
Put me on the committee.
Yeah, and we're going to record all of our conversations and release them to the public.
We'll do it live. We'll do it on a stream. You can just be in the room with us as we do it.
Right. We'll get we'll just have like a big round table. We'll get a Cello and Terry in and
Larkin.
And Larkin, yeah, perfect. I'll get my dad in there. He's got some hot takes he wants to get off his chest, I'm sure. Yeah. That's what we should do is actually get a bunch of dads.
Just a bunch of lax dads.
Those guys love it. So, cool. All right. Well, this has got squarely off the rails as I guess was planned. So yeah, I am done. My NLL season, unfortunately. So I'm back to being a fan for the month of rest of April, month of May. Are you heading out to a game this weekend?
I might be. There's some high school action near me, which is worth checking out. Darien is playing Brunswick. Brunswick is one of the best teams in the country. Darien's one of the best publics in the country. So there's that I'm going to try and check out, I think. But in terms of college ball near me this weekend, I don't think there's any that's on the radar. I may go today if timing and work schedule bears it out to try and go see Sacred Heart. They are playing Manhattan at 3:00. It's about 15 minutes from my house. Sacred Heart can host the MAC tournament if they win that game. If they lose that game, then the Siena Marist game at 4:00 becomes interesting because then if Sacred Heart loses and Siena wins, Siena hosts the MAC tournament. If they both lose, then you have to go to page 7 of the MAC tiebreaker rules to find the way to figure out who's going to host between Sacred Heart, Siena, and Canisius. So a lot of good MACtion today on a Wednesday.
There should be a page on page 7 of the MAC rulebook. It should be like, if you're still reading this, go to your fridge, grab a beer, and fucking chill out.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I hope at some point it's just a coin flip or something like that, but whatever. It's the MAC. It's the MAC. You got to love it. So I'm selling tiebreaker procedures at this time of year.
Sell them to Evan Schemenauer. He freaking loves those things. It's his favorite thing on the planet. So, Yeah, a lot of good deep cuts here today.
I know. I'm a little
Lacrosse
inside,
Twitter.
but there's some good ones in there.
Yep. Yeah. So, well, always a pleasure, man. Good to have you back, and looking forward here to count down towards Memorial Day. And thanks everyone for listening.
Thanks, everybody.